Committee on Tertiary Education and Services, it is my pleasure to most sincerely welcome all to this public hearing. I want to welcome in particular the Honorable Speaker, House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Bajabiamila, who is ably represented here by the Chief Whip, Right Honorable Mohammed Mungunu. I also want to in particular welcome the leader of the minority, who is also the sponsor of one of the bills under consideration. I also seize the opportunity to in a special way welcome His Excellency, the Governor of Delta State, Dr. Arthur Ipanyo Okoa, ably represented by the Secretary to the Government. Let me use this opportunity to express the committee's condolences to the victims and families of COVID-19 virus and wish those infected by the virus quick recovery and pray for early disappearance of the virus from this country and the world over. As you are aware, we are gathered here today to deliberate on the underlisted bills referred to the committee for the establishment of federal institutions in different locations in the country. Having concluded debate on this under a general principle and proposal legislative scrutiny by this honorable committee, the bills are as follows. One, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal University of Technology, Asaba, Delta State. And the second one is a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal College of Education, Kiana, Nasarawa State, HB 439. The two bills are sponsored by the minority leader, Honorable Ilumelu, the man of God as we know him here, and of course, our able friend, Honorable Nasarawa, respectively. As you must have heard or may be aware, the committee's mandate covers largely the oversight of all federal institutions, federal universities, polytechnics, colleges of education, and polytechnics, from where it derives its name, where the remaining jurisdiction include, among others. For purposes of time, I would want to, with the permission of the Speaker, skip the agencies, and they are captured there. As enumerated above, and in exercise of the committee's mandate of lawmaking, which is one of our constitutional functions as legislators, we deem it appropriate to subject the bills to public scrutiny in order to elicit input from not only relevant ministries, departments, and agencies, but from the general public. We are therefore optimistic that at the end of the exercise, your contribution will go a long way to further enrich the spirit and provision of the bills, which will also enable the committee to do justice to the bill, which is part of our legislative tradition, practice, and procedures of lawmaking, or new or amendment of existing acts, or the establishment of entirely new ones. Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, and invited guests, you will agree with me that it is obvious we are faced with challenges of adequate and quality tertiary education in the country, where each year a lot of our children desiring to acquire tertiary education don't get admission as a result of several factors, among which is allocation of certain number of slots for admission based on quota system, which of course cannot accommodate all candidates, even all the necessary requirements for admission are met. This challenge is partly due to inadequate tertiary institution in the country, which would adequately accommodate the yearly quest for admission by Nigerians. Hence, the ardent need to establish more tertiary institutions in the country to address such recurring challenges. It is gratifying to note that as true representatives of the people, members of the House have been sponsoring bills and motions to correct these anomalies. And these bills, this bill are part of such effort at establishing more institutions, and if passed into law, will ameliorate the suffering for the quest for tertiary education and improve the effective and efficient operation of not only tertiary institutions, but JAMB being the body charged with admission in Nigeria. On this note, I want to reassure you that your contributions will be carefully and objectively studied, and the relevant input or suggestion will form part of our recommendation. Once again, on behalf of the members of the committee, I wish to thank the Honorable Speaker and Honorable members, all invited guests present here, and to appreciate in advance your invaluable contribution. Thank you and God bless.
Benefit from the 21st century knowledge economy. The fact that this hearing is holding today when the National Assembly is on recess and members are presumably away from legislative business emphasizes our belief that education is the silver bullet that solves many of our national problems, and as such always deserves our highest commitment and best efforts. While we seek to create new federal institutions of higher learning, we must not lose sight of the unfortunate fact that too many of the institutions that already exist have not lived up to the expectation of world-class excellence. The reasons for this are many and include financial limitations, failings of policy development and implementation, and the absence of a tertiary education policy plan that reflects current realities, amongst others. However, we must also consider that the statutory foundation of these institutions have also contributed to the dysfunction that causes them to fail to meet their highest potential. As we work on this bill, we have a responsibility to ask ourselves to what extent the establishment status of existing institutions have limited their ability to innovate, including by entering into partnership that add real value in terms of research and development, governance improvements, among others such. We also have a responsibility to engage as many voices as possible to jointly seek ways we can use the instrument of legislation to improve the foundation upon which we build these institutions. If we do this, we will succeed in creating new centers of higher education that are set off from the onset to meet the high expectation we all rightly have. The importance of today's public hearing is further underscored by the presence of so many critical stakeholders who have come to contribute and to make their voices heard. Mr. Chairman and my honorable colleagues on the committee, I encourage you to take advantage of the presence of this assemblage of well-intentioned citizens, receive, collect, and contemplate on all their contributions, even those that may appear to conflict with pre-existing positions or expectations, so that from the multitude of voices, we may forge a common purpose and achieve excellence. The tradition of public hearings exists to allow public voices to influence the legislative policy-making process and improve outcomes. It is a noble tradition, and I am glad that so many of you have gathered to participate in today's edition. I equally just as pleased to have the honor of declaring this hearing open to the glory of God and the service of the Nigerian people. I welcome you all once more to the House of Representatives and wish you successful deliberations. God bless you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Holders to this auspicious occasion where we are to discuss the establishment of the University of Technology in Nasarawa, the capital of Delta State, a town I'm so passionate about. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there is no gainsaying that education is the bedrock of societal development upon which great nations build their economies. Most developed nations channel substantial amount of their earnings into funding education in line with the recommendations of the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization known as UNESCO, which says that a minimum of 26% of a country's annual budget and 6% of the gross domestic product, GDP, be invested in funding education. Aware that technology is the modern-day roadmap that leads to the future as it supports the students to be innovative, reflective, as well as critical in creating new models or products, while putting into consideration their environmental and economic conditions. The desire to push for the creation of this university through legislation stems from the need to provide more opportunities and level playing ground for all to gain admission into Nigerian universities and to specialize in technology-related courses. When this university is established, it will be the first and only university of technology in the whole of the South-South region, and the only federal university in Asaba. It is therefore incumbent for us to note that the establishment of this university will help to open the floodgate for technology development and transfer in the South-South geopolitical zone and neighboring states, most especially Anambra State, within the boundaries of the zone and Kogi State as well. The National Assembly, as an arm of government, owes it as a duty, which I'm grateful that even though we are on vacation, the Speaker has graciously deemed it fit to approve that this public hearing be held, to draw the nation's attention to the need for the continuous investment in the areas of technology, as such investment will not only build our economy but enhance our image and standing and place us in a proper state in the communities of nations. The presence of COVID-19 has brought with it the dawn of the reality and importance of technology, and why Nigeria as a country needs to urgently invest massively in technological development. As failure to earlier heed to these warnings have led to the loss of highly gifted Nigerians who, in their quest to seek technological knowledge, migrated to other countries, who have gone on to maximize the benefits of the potentials of our own citizens to our own detriment. The major reasons for the migration of our valued manpower is the lack of adequate university of technology in the country to cater for the need of our citizens. I therefore stand here today, even though I'm seated, to push for the repeat paragraph M of the first schedule of the Federal College of Education Technical at CAP F8, Laws of the Federation Nigeria 2004, which established the College of Education Technical Asaba, Delta State, and for the reenactment of the Federal University of Technology Asaba, Delta State, so as to provide students in the state and its environs the opportunity of gaining broad technological knowledge and practices that will equip them with solutions to modern-day challenges, as well as prepare them for technological-related careers in the nearest future. And stakeholders to this auspicious occasion, where we are to discuss the establishment of the University of Technology in Asaba, the capital of Delta State, a town I'm so passionate about. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there is no gainsaying that education is the bedrock of societal development, upon which great nations build their economies. Most developed nations channel substantial amount of their earnings into funding education in line with the recommendations of the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, known as UNESCO, which says that a minimum of 26% of a country's annual budget and 6% of the gross domestic product, GDP, be invested in funding education. Aware that technology is the modern-day roadmap that leads to the future as it supports the students to be innovative, reflective, as well as critical in creating new models or products, while putting into consideration their environmental and economic conditions. The desire to push for the creation of this university through legislation stems from the need to provide more opportunities and level playing ground for all to gain admission into Nigerian universities and to specialize in technology-related courses. When this university is established, it will be the first and only university of technology in the whole of the South-South region, and the only federal university in Asaba. It is therefore incumbent for us to note that the establishment of this university will help to open the floodgate for technology development and transfer in the South-South geopolitical zone and neighboring states, most especially Anambra State, within the boundaries of the zone and Kogi State as well. The National Assembly, as an arm of government, owes it as a duty, which I'm grateful that even though we're on vacation, the Speaker has graciously deemed it fit to approve that this public hearing be held, to draw the nation's attention to the need for the continuous investment in the areas of technology, as such investment will not only build our economy but enhance our image and standing and place us in a proper stead in the committees of nations. The presence of COVID-19 has brought with it the dawn of the reality and importance of technology, and why Nigeria as a country needs to urgently invest massively in technological development. As failure to earlier heed to these warnings have led to the loss of highly gifted Nigerians who, in their quest to seek technological knowledge, migrated to other countries, who have gone on to maximize the benefits of the potentials of our own citizens to our own detriment. The major reasons for the migration of our valued manpower is the lack of adequate University of Technology in the country to cater for the need of our citizens. I therefore stand here today, even though I'm seated, to push for the repeat paragraph M of the first schedule of the Federal College of Education Technical at CAP F8, Laws of the Federation Nigeria, 2004, which established the College of Education Technical Asaba, Delta State, and for the reenactment of the Federal University of Technology, Asaba, Delta State, so as to provide students in the state and its environs the opportunity of gaining broad technological knowledge and practices that will equip them with solutions to modern-day challenges, as well as prepare them for technological-related careers in the nearest future.
Especially the governor of our state, His Excellency Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, who I represent here. And he is particularly delighted with the subject of this public hearing, that he ensured that the state submitted a memorandum on the matter despite the serious time constraints for submissions made by stakeholders. For him, the initiative is a very patriotic trust for the development of the country at large. Just summarizing our presentation, which we submitted on Monday, 35 copies, the role and benefits of education and technology. Mr. Chairman, it's a known fact that education remains the agent of civilization, and one of the key challenges of development in African countries is the low pace of technological development, adaptation, and transfer. So simply put, the difference between a developed country and a developing country can be tied to the level of education and the use and application of technology. So if as a nation we focus and continue this trend of improving education and technology, it means that the new university will lead to the development of a critical mass of scientists, technologists, and engineers who will become the dominant elite that can act as catalysts for the transformation of the Nigerian nation into a true modern society, just like the Asian tigers did. The minority leader has touched on the catchment areas, and yes, as it stands today, the South-South geopolitical zone doesn't have a federal university of technology. It is proposed that this zone, which comprises of the Brace states and also neighboring states based on proximity, like Anambra and Kogi, like he said, will generally be seen to provide the bulk of the students that would attend this university. Thus, the establishment of the university will significantly reduce students' admission pressure on the universities of Benin, Port Harcourt, Calabar, Uyo, and the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, which are highly sought-after institutions for technology and engineering-based education within the catchment area. More importantly, it will also boost access to technological education within the area and ease admission frustration amongst youths, thus grossly mitigating criminal tendencies and violent behaviors, including pipeline vandalism, kidnapping, bunkering, armed robbery, and general economic sabotage and a host of other felonies prevalent in parts of the catchment area. I've come from Asaba, the capital of Delta State, today. With me today, and if you would just permit me, I have two members of the State Executive Council who are educationists. Professor Patrick Mobogari is the Commissioner for Higher Education, and Mrs. Bubemi Ikolo is the Commissioner for Technical Education as well. We also have Dr. Godwin Edozie, a seasoned educationist who is a Senior Special Assistant to the Governor. Like I did say earlier on, we also have...
It's against a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal University of Technology, Asaba, Delta State. The union observed as follows. Though our union notes with keen interest that the bill sponsored by Honorable Ndoli Olumelu, proposes to establish the Federal University of Technology, Asaba, Delta State, ASUU's view on this proposal are outlined in the observations and conclusions below. The union observed as follows. Delta State, where the proposed university is to be cited, already has 3 federal universities. Federal University of Petroleum Resources, Admiralty University of Nigeria, the Nigerian Maritime University. Establishing another federal university in the state will trigger agitations for equity in other states of the federation, and this could fuel proliferation challenge currently facing the Nigerian university system. As a matter of principle, ASUU is strongly against proliferation of public universities. It is our considered view that the existing public universities are in their need of upgrades and revitalization, not creation of new ones. Creating new universities without addressing the challenges of the existing ones will further undermine the quality of university education in the country. Addressing the funding challenge and the governance issues in the Nigerian university system should be the main focus of all stakeholders in the view of the enormous crisis facing the system. Previous agreements and memoranda between Federal Government of Nigeria, FGN, and ASUU from 1992 till date, which are meant to reposition universities, have not been respected by government. The most recent case is the ongoing government attempt to repudiate the Federal Government ASUU Memorandum of Action of 7 February 2019, for which ASUU is currently on strike. The National Assembly, particularly the House Representatives, have a significant role to play in ensuring that the Nigerian government complies with the minimum 20% annual budgetary allocation recommended by United Nations Fund for Population Activities, UNFPA, and other international organizations for developing countries. It is only Nigeria that has its budgetary prescription that is not respected among the D8 countries. The highest federal government budgetary allocation to Nigerian education in the last 10 years is 11%. And it went as low as below 7% before it was further reviewed downward by the National Assembly in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. ASUU believes, in conclusion, that the establishment of universities as universal entities should be driven by the desire to create avenue for the pursuit of highest quality of knowledge-driven activities. Any Nigerian universities must have the ability to compete globally. Therefore, upgrading the capacity of its existing universities should be our priority rather than establishing new universities. Adequate and sustainable funding is critical for a university to deliver on its mandate for producing quality human resources and providing hubs for creativity, innovations for the development of the country. ASUU can only support the establishment of new universities when we see incontrovertible evidence that the needs of the existing ones are satisfactorily met. The various agreements and memoranda reached between our unions and the federal government has provided the roadmap for sustainable development of Nigerian universities. Unfortunately, government has paid lip service by reneging on its promises. All our efforts to make the National Assembly support ASUU's advocacy has proved futile. Creation of universities on ground of political exigencies is out of tune with promoting good quality education, university education, and global best practices. It is tantamount to reducing university establishment to constituency projects. This for all intents and purposes, is a recipe for proliferation of universities, as we are already witnessing proliferation of universities by some state governors in Nigeria. In view of the foregoing, we call on the Honorable House of Representatives to support the cause of revamping and revitalization existing universities in Nigeria, rather than creating new ones that will in no time suffer the fate of the older ones. The case of the 12 new universities, including Federal University of Petroleum Resources, Iforum, Delta State, created by Fiat under Goodluck Jonathan's administration, clearly attests to this point. Finally, ASUU therefore strongly objects to this bill, to the bill for an act to provide the establishment of Federal University of Technology, Asaba, Delta State. Thank you. Signed, Biodun Ogoyim.
And to agree or to disagree, we can assure Nigerians that will be rightly guided by very objective position, as might be espoused by guests that have appeared and who might appear through correspondences and referendum. However, we very much welcome and respect the presentation of ASUU. Although I don't want to join issues with ASUU, this is the first time I'm hearing that ASUU is saying we have never been on the same page with them in trying to address their issue. But it's okay, it's noted. If the president is here, I'm sure this statement will have been corrected or put very much rightly. But however, I want to thank you for coming and for the presentation. I quickly invite the Senior Staff Association of...
The fact of the matter is that we know educationally we need more universities, but there are attendant problems that have not been adequately taken care of by the government. We so feel, and it's important to bear in mind, that proliferation of new universities has consequences that must be attended to. For instance, if we have new universities, yes, it will serve a purpose, but it has its own attendant problem. The problem among which include the fact that you need staff. Manpower is a serious problem in this country. Just like somebody has said earlier, that is ASUU, the universities established in the recent past added more problem to the system rather than taking care of what we have on ground. So not only that, it is important also to note that, yes, mainstreaming new university into the old system could come in a manner that if policymakers in this instance look at it from the perspective of let's take it one after the other, is going to assist not only the university that we are creating, but the entire university, the entire university system in Nigeria. Sir, just like somebody was observing, we in SANU felt that in order to take care of this gamut of problem, government should look at this problem, resolve it, and we'll come to terms with what we are doing. Clearly, sir, if you look at it presently, in the universities, there are grievances among not only a union, but among the respective unions of the university. Government is owing, government is supposed to pay what they are supposed to pay to the staff, members of the university community as a staff, but unfortunately, we've not been able to take care of that, and we're creating another one. We are not saying that we don't need university. We need university, but we must be serious with what we're doing so that there will be basis for whatsoever we're doing. It's not proliferation of this university that is the problem, but the problem is the management of these universities. I think we need to think along that line, and that is going to help us. For SANU, this is where our position is majorly, because in the university, what we do, we provide a direction. We may not necessarily be the vice chancellor, but as custodian of the rules and regulations of the university, we are disturbed because these are issues that come to terms with getting the best out of what we are doing. So we are, expecting the government to look at it from angle that we are advising that issues like this should be taken into consideration so that at the end of the day, we'll be on the same page. There won't be problems with the existing ones, and even people that are working in the universities will not have issues of today saying that this allowance, that allowance. If you don't take care of the old ones and you're establishing a new one, of course you are creating more problems. Sir, it is important to also bear in mind, most especially this issue of manpower that we're talking about. It's in the university, creation of more universities in Nigeria of late has introduced something into the system Somebody will be accusing ASUU members of going to this university, going to that university. That may not necessarily be the case. The regulatory body, like NUC, if they know that you need a particular person of particular caliber in this, if you don't have, you have to go to another one. Therefore, that will affect the quality of what you are going to do, even in your own university, where you are rightly employed. I think we need to look at this. Sorry for taking time. We need to look at these things, and this is where the point of Samuel is coming. Thank you very much. Just like I was discussing with my colleague, and when we saw this thing, I said the provision made was a leading question in such a way. But the fact of the matter is that it's not that we're completely against the creation of the board. We are, in a sense, because if these things are not taken care of, having new universities is also a problem.
Comrade.
The College of Education in Nigeria, that their bills have not been amended. The one for universities have been done, the one for polytechnics have been done, but it's only the one for College of Education in Nigeria. And it has passed the third reading in 8th Senate, only waiting for the presidential assent. Before there were bottlenecks, it was not done. We are representing it again to the Ninth Assembly. So we are praying to this House, the National Assembly, to help us to pass the College of Education bill, so that all these problems will be taken care of, including the new proposed Kiana Federal College of Education to be established. If it is done, the issue of manpower and funding will be a thing of the past. Thank you.
To ensure that issues are militating against an objective and improved education system in Nigeria is addressed. We are willing to ensure that the tools available by us through the instrument of the Constitution is always used to ensure that the country's system of education continue to improve for the better. We can assure you of continuous quality legislation, appropriation, supervision, collaboration to ensure that the sector remains at the top. We want to thank all those that have taken time to make representation, and we are not able to come for one reason or the other. We want to emphasize again our appreciation to those who have taken time to come, more especially the communities involved. On behalf of the Deputy Chair, the honorable members, and again the leader that is still here with us.
Schools are specialized schools, specialized for the purposes for which they've been set up. A maritime university is totally different from a federal university. Yeah, a specialized university or a specialized educational institution is a specialized educational institution. You can't equate a maritime university with a university of technology and vice versa. And so the need for these specialized institutions is really apt at this time.
So an issue raised is that of proliferation of university and the issue of funding. The existing ones are suffering from it, and then so why the need for additional one in Delta?
First of all, it's not just the need for an additional one in Delta. Do we need these universities? We know the role of education. We also know the role of technology as well. So yes, funding would need to be stepped up. Funding would need to be improved for these educational institutions. But in terms of
Education Academic Staff Union, ASUU. And like you heard us say, the bills in themselves are desirable because it would give easy access to tertiary education to the teeming youths of Nigeria looking for admission. You recall that year in, year out, most of the applicants for tertiary education services don't get admitted. At the end of the day, where do you put the lot? So the numbers kept growing. That is why we are in support of the general principle behind the bills. But like we said, there are concerns which we believe are quite administrative. And these concerns are on three essential areas: the issue of funding, the data of personnel, and the fact that in our own special case, we are witnessing some attrition because of the quest of Nigerians for degree education. That is still the position that we maintain. You recall that on the funding aspect, there are so many agreements by tertiary institution unions that government has not even come to terms with. Government has refused to implement them unilaterally. So those ones are still there. They border on funding. And of course, the needs assessment for the provision of infrastructure and other facilities.
National Universities Commission, and the Executive Secretary, he may still come. He is actually, he and the Minister, that's what the Minister is not here, are there trying to extinguish a fire that was set in the University of Lagos. They were meeting yesterday until late in the night, and they continued this morning. So he sends his regards, and he said I should let you know that the National Universities Commission is always excited when any new institution, a university, is coming on board, because with the 171 universities we have in Nigeria, the admission every year does not exceed 500,000, 500,000. And we have applicants sometime in excess of 1 million. So we are excited and we support this. And I would also want to thank the chairman for correcting the impression about the only university in Delta or in Asaba. In fact, every state of the Federation has a federal university, at least one. A few of them have two. And if this one comes on board, Delta is going to be having the only state to have two specialized universities, because they have the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, EFRON, that was founded in 2007, and this one. And there's a third one, which is a quasi-federal institution, the Admiralty University. There is some federal government intervention there. So I thank you most sincerely. We've made a submission, sir, but I'm going to just say two of the items that are in our submission for clarity. On the composition of the council, which is in section 5, subsection 1E, 1 to 3, we want to say that the law cannot dictate to government how to compose councils. Already under the Universities Miscellaneous Provision Amendment Act 2003, there is a stipulation of who will be in the governing council of universities. So please delete that. It is superfluous. That has been taken care of by the law. And also we want to say that when it comes to retirement of university staff, there are 3 sections. The law mentioned only one. The 2 others should be mentioned. In section 24, page 343 of the bill, dealing with special provisions relating to pension of professors, there's a need to include 2 new subsections as stated below, to bring the above in line with section 5, subsection 2 and 3 of the Universities Miscellaneous Provision Act of 2012. Notwithstanding subsection 1, where the professor has not served up to retirement age, he shall be entitled to the rate of pension mentioned under subsection 1, provided that he has served a minimum of 20 years as a professor in a recognized university. And where an academic joins a Nigerian university as a professor, these are additions we want to be made in the law. Such a professor shall have served continuously for at least 20 years in a recognized university. In section 25, subsection 1, line 18, page C343 of the bill, the secretary to council and as registrar will be substituted with registrar as appropriate officer. We have made some slight observations on other sections, but we want to say that this law is one of the best we have seen on a university that is just starting. So as a commission, we support this, and we are in full support, and we hope it comes on board very quickly. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Day of December 2019, I led a debate on a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal College of Education, Kana, Nasarawa State, and the House deliberated on it, on its general principles, and referred same to this committee, hence this public hearing. It is worthy to note that education is a crucial sector in any nation, and it is a fundamental responsibility of the government under the Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, to provide adequate educational opportunities at all levels to every citizen. Being a major investment in human capital development, education plays a critical role in long-term productivity and growth at both micro and macro levels. It goes a long way to say that without education, a nation cannot get the needed manpower for material advancement and enlightenment of the citizens. In Awaido Makiana Federal Constituency, It has, however, become pertinent to establish the Federal College of Education, Ghana, to address the current imbalance in the establishment of federal colleges of education in the state, and to bridge the gap of non-existent tertiary institution in federal constituency. This will go a long way in creating favorable atmosphere for educational development, a long way in creating for educational development in constituency and some neighboring states. Despite the dense and growing population of the constituency and apparently having more educational potentials, the federal constituency has no single tertiary institution, and Nasarawa State has no established Federal College of Education. The constituents are in dire need of a tertiary institution to fill the huge literacy gap and address the concern of those whose future bleak by establishing a tertiary institution that guarantees continuity of youth education in the constituency. Mr. Chairman, my highly respected colleagues, I would like to urge this committee to consider the establishment of this institution while the leader of the delegation will present his report. Thank you.
Leadership of the House and members of this House in general, and the chairman and members of this very honorable committee, for the privilege of presence and the positive and speedy consideration of the bill presented by the honorable member representing our federal constituency, Honorable Abubakar Hassan Nasarawa, my younger brother. We acknowledge the sterling performance of the Ninth Assembly evidenced by the numerous bills and resolutions passed that have direct bearing with public welfare. In particular, we appreciate that out of so many bills before this committee and the House, you have listed the bill for the establishment of a Federal College of Education in Ghana today. And we want to especially thank Honorable Limelu for what you have said about today's sitting. We thank you very much, my dear brother. Mr. Speaker, please convey, Mr. Chairman, sir, convey to Mr. Speaker, principal officers and honorable members of the House, the assurances of our support and prayers. We are very, very proud of this 9th National Assembly. Kiana, the headquarters of Kiana local government in present-day Nasarawa State, is a historic salt mining and trading community that flourished since the 15th century. Various accounts of history indicate affinity and friendship with its neighbors, kith and kin in Arochukwu, Nsuka, Ere in the southeast, Yala in Cross River State, and part of the northeast, especially with the Jukuns of Borno, Yobe, Gombe, and Taraba states. This is in addition to its very firm roots in the north-central zone, particularly in Plateau South, in Benue South, and in Kogi East and Kogi West senatorial districts. Kiana, in Awe Doma and Kiana Federal Constituency of Nasarawa State, has a land area of approximately 1,550 kilometers and is located at the far end of Nasarawa State. It shares common boundary with Benue State and is bounded by Awe, Doma, and Obi local government areas.
Of the establishment of a Federal College of Education, Kiana. Our stand is predicated on the need for every state to have a Federal College of Education in tandem with federal character principle. Presently, the Nasarawa State does not have a Federal College of Education. Thus, we support the establishment of one in the states. Now, from the bill, for an act to establish Federal College of Education in Kiana, Nasarawa State, to provide full-time courses in teaching, instruction, and training in technology, applied sciences, etc., etc. It's our opinion or suggestion that the proposed institution should be a technical one. Thus, we advise that the name should read Federal College of Education, Technical, Kiana, Nasarawa. Going by the format of the bill, it will be better to conform with the provisions of the 1986 Federal College of Education Act, where presently With the recent 6 new colleges in the various geopolitical zones, we now have 27 federal colleges of education, which has a law encompassing all of them. So we are pleading that the schedule of the list of the federal colleges of education should be one, in tandem with, whereas all the laws should just be the same thing, with minor variations, which one is conventional and which one is technical. Based on the above, the schedule list of all federal education in the Act be amended to increase the number of additional federal colleges of education the National Assembly may resolve to create. Thank you, sir.
In Kiana, in Nasarawa State, as sponsored by our member. And Mr. Chairman, permit me to briefly introduce some of the people that are here with me. Sir, I have our elder brother, Mr. Jonah Obole, a retired secretary of the government and a former chairman of the Federal Civil Service Commission. Please stand up. Former member of the Federal Civil Service Commission. Sir, we have Dr. Yusuf Abdullahi Oguzebe, the one Bankiana. We have Professor Otaki Alanana, is a member of the State Executive Council. Honorable Musa Elai Abdullahi, a former member of the House of Reps, 1999, a former Honorable Minister of State for Justice, and many others. Nasarawa State, as you all know, is one of the states in the country, and it's the only state in the country that I know that does not have a federal college of education, whether technical or otherwise. So it is just fair and equitable that the state also gets a federal college of education. Now, with reference to Kiana in particular, the history of Western education in the entire Nasarawa state started in Kiana in 1916, when the first primary school was established. And so when you go by historical antecedents, it will be a good legacy for the federal government to recognize this feat and put a federal college of education there. For the local environment, there is a very big secretariat, local government secretariat that has over 120 offices, in addition to so many committee rooms that can serve as classrooms. There is also the staff quarters. The land is fertile, the land is vast, the land is serene, and the community is ready to give 100,000 hectares of land free of charge without compensation. It's bounded by Benue State, so it means that you can have students from Nasarawa and Benue in the school. So the entire federal constituency of Kiana Awedoma has no tertiary institution. So therefore, we believe that it's a worthy request. And this is not the first time that we are making the request. A similar request was made to the executive in 2015. And since then, the community has been ready, and we are ready to donate as many public and private buildings as possible. So the takeoff of the institution is not a problem at all. The road to the place is tarred. The place is connected to the national grid. The road enjoys good water, and there is food and good land for people that are ready to go into agriculture. And then there is also the discovery of hydrocarbon now. So it's a place that if you put an institution like this, the issue of revenue and other things will not be a big problem.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we want to thank all the people that supported us. There was nobody that opposed us. And we want to thank you, members of the press.